Here we are with the Cody Carpentier.
NFL draft time, baby.
Feels good. Feels good. Mida Mansion, Cody Carpentier back. I got the Cody Carpentier designed hat today. Feeling very good. Feeling very fresh. We just were traded to the Malik Nabers Pro Day 40. Cody, report. Tell us, how'd he run?
Well, there were some reports that came out that first he ran a 4.35. There were some reports that said one side of the bleacher had him at 4.41. I personally had him right here at 4.39. So nonetheless, I think we're going to be happy here because he's running in somewhere along the 4.3. So call it 4.40 if you want. Add the 5/10s. It's 4.45. Worst case scenario, plenty fast. We're happy.
I love that you had the stopwatch so you could time him via television. I love that. Albert Breer had him at a 4.35. Others had him at 4.41, as you said. It's probably going to shake out. My guess is it's going to shake out to like a 4.38. And once you adjust to be on par with Combine 40 times, he'll be in the low 4.4s. That's what you can expect. And that is as good as you could have expected from a guy who weighs 200 pounds. Like, he is big. The fear was that he would run a 4.5 plus and then have to be discounted. But we knew because for some reason he decided to do the explosion drills first. So he absolutely shredded the vertical jump and the broad jump. How did he look in the vertical and in the broad?
I mean, 42-inch vertical was, I think, third in the draft class. His 10'9", so 129-inch broad jump, I think, was good for sixth in the class. The 40, you talk about somewhere in between that 4.35 and 4.41. Odell ran a 4.43. Jamar Chase ran a 4.39. Nabers is running his second 40 right now. So he's going to be in that range. He's having a really weird time stabilizing himself to set up for this 40, which is very abnormal and kind of odd, but he's off. He's running the second 40 right now.
He had a false start initially. Okay.
Flat.
4.4 flat in his second 40, so they'll go with the first one. And again, we're going to adjust. He's going to be high 4.3s at the Pro Day, which will adjust to low 4.4s officially on PlayerProfiler.com. That's great news. That's great news. And you know it, though. If a guy's going to go out and he's going to post a 95th plus percentile burst score, which is what he did in those vertical and broad jump numbers, then you know he's fast. Like, it's a very rare thing that someone is super explosive in the burst score and then face plants in the 40 time, runs a 4.55 40. That's very rare. There's a handful of receivers where we see that happen, but most of the time there's a correlation there between the burst score and the 40 time. There's a closer correlation between burst score and 40 time than there is agility score in 40 time. We have some receivers, Greg Dortch's, right, that have the slow 40s, they have the low burst, but they do have the elite agility. So that's a thing. Julian Edelman's probably the best example of that, where he had like a 97th percentile agility score and then wasn't particularly fast, wasn't particularly explosive in those drills. But Malik Nabers, do you think he's going to do the 20-yard shuttle and the 3-cone drill?
If they give him a number that's in the 4.3s, I would probably be ventured to bet he's done. Maybe they can convince him. I know last year, the Quentin Johnson thing, Alex always famously talks about, where they had to beg him. There was like multiple scouts who were like, please come run the 3-cone. Please come run the 3-cone. I don't think that's a worry, really. I don't think they're worried about Nabers' lateral movements and lateral abilities, so I'm not sure they're going to force him to do that. But I think the biggest thing here was he just came out, showed how explosive he was, which we kind of already knew. It was just kind of figuring out what those numbers were exactly going to be. And like I said, if they tell him, which I'm assuming they will, hey, 4.38, whatever, he's going to be like, all right, cool, I'm done. Hang it up. And
yeah, I mean, if I had to guess based on his size and his production and his burst score, I would have guessed 4.42. He's probably going to check it in a 4.43 officially. It's perfectly in line with expectation. You're going to see a little bit of a bump in the Malik Nabers hype, and people switching him again. Right? We had Nabers at 2. No, now we're going to have a Doozy at 2 because the Doozy had a great combine. No, now Nabers had a great pro day. We're going to switch him back. You've had Nabers at 1 all along, right?
Yeah, I've had neighbors. So, we were talking about this pre-show a little bit, and Alex will famously tell me this. He tells me I'm a coward because when I got through the first iteration, I put both Marv and Malik. I listed them both at number 1, and then I started at number 3, Rome, and then I went from there. I don't really care when you're looking at this class in totality, and we'll talk about it as the course of the show goes on. But as far as wide receiver 1 goes, all 3 of these guys play different. And all 3 of these guys are number 1s. It just so happens that they're all in the same class. So I don't want to beat myself up. I don't want to beat these guys up trying to converse over which one I want or which one's better, which one's this, which one's that. They're all very good. They all deserve to be literally number 1. I just so happen to like, my favorite piece of candy just happens to be the 6 foot tall, 199-pound one that jumps 42 inches and runs 4.38 and just hyper dynamic on the field.
Matty Kiwoom prefers Romeo Aduze, which I love, and that's great. He has the great work ethic. He has the incredible athletic profile, but all along it's been Marvin Harrison, the presumptive wide receiver 1 in this class. Is this the case of just boredom setting in and people wanting to change it up? Sick of Marvin Harrison.
I think the mass feel on Twitter would tell you that. However, I think it was maybe 3 weeks ago now, I put out a post about, and it was one of these ones where you whether you're sitting in the toilet, you're in the shower, you're laying in bed, and you have these thoughts. Normally, I don't tweet them out. But instead, I'm laying there and I start tweeting this thing out, and it's about why isn't Malik Nabers wide receiver 1, right? And I'm just thinking, I'm like, this tweet's going to get maybe a like. It's 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and I wake up in the morning and this thing's gone off. And Lance Zierlein replies to it. And Lance Zierlein hadn't even put out his grades yet. He's like, Nabers is my number 1. And then it feels like ever since then, the Band-Aid has just been ripped off to where you're starting to hear teams have Nabers number 1, teams have Atunze number 1. And generally this time of year, the prospect fatigue does set in and people are going to come off of guys like Marv.
Prospect fatigue, I like that.
And Marv is number 1. Malik is number 1. Rome feels like he's a tad behind there, but he's still a number 1. And in a normal class, he could be the number 1 of the class at the wide receiver position. So Rome just happened to be the one guy that went to the combine and checked every single box, participated in every single thing, and showed that he had the mental fortitude to come in there and compete and just dog everybody. And he was down there till 11 o'clock at night running 3-cone drills. Like that's, there's a piece of that you have to love. And in that offense, it did boost him a little bit, but of course, all 3 of these guys played in great offenses. So I can't knock Matty for having Rome number 1. Rome is a stud. It's like, okay, we had this conversation again. Literally, this is like the behind the scenes things that goes on. But like when we're at the combine, one of those nights we start having this conversation. We're at, of all places, we go to B-Dubs for dinner that night to kind of keep it cheap. And it's like 8 o'clock. We start talking at the bar. We get back to the Airbnb. We're talking about who's wide receiver 1 until 3:30 in the morning. This conversation started at 8. We talked about 3. And the thing is, we didn't just talk about it. We literally pulled up film on the computer, casted it to the TV, and we're sitting there watching one by one. Marv all 22, Malik all 22, Adunze all 22. And it's like, all right, so here's the thing, man. You're picking between A.J. Green, Torrey Holt, and Larry Fitzgerald. Pick one.
It's crazy.
Does it matter? Does it
matter?
What a
class. What a top 3. What an incredible top 3. Do you have to go back 10 years? Do you have to go back to 2014 to find a better or equal top 3? I mean, Sammy Watkins was in that.
Yep.
It was like Sammy Watkins, Mike Evans, Odell Beckham. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. We don't even have to mention, Brandon Cooks. There's a whole bunch of talent in that class. Looking at the first rounders.
Was a second-round pick.
Devontae Adams was a second-round pick. I was just talking about first rounders for a moment, but yeah, I mean, Devontae Adams happened to be the best of all of those guys. Yeah. But yeah, or Mike Evans. We'll see who finishes with the most career yards. I think Mike Evans is ahead, but Devontae Adams has had the most sort of big booming, difference-making fantasy seasons in his career. But yeah, I mean, Odell Beckham had the highlight reels. It's this class, man. Are we going to get a sense of Marvin Harrison's athleticism?
I don't think so. Let me pull up the Feldman's Freak List last year had Marv in it, I want to say. And Marvin had a statistic. I want to say it was like a 3.94 short shuttle, a 10'8" broad jump. And these were tested He also has a 380-pound bench and a 500-pound squat. These are reported numbers from Ohio State. So 380 bench, 500 squat, 10'8" broad at 6'4", which is an inch shorter than what Malik did today. 3.94 short shuttle, which is sub 4 is check the box.
Oh, incredible!
I think Jackson Smith last year was either 3.96 or 3.86, but that same ballpark. So you can only assume that the 40's probably sub 4.5, 4.48, 4 whatever. It doesn't matter. Like that's the thing. That's why he didn't do it. He doesn't have an agent. He has his dad. His dad's gone through the process. His dad has had the conversations. He's had the conversations. What is him going out there and running 4.48 or a 4.62? Like, what's it do? 4.62 only hurts him, right? Doesn't matter though. It's not his play style. His play style isn't. It doesn't. It's not dependent on that. So, yeah, you've heard a lot of the GPS conversations come up this year regarding him, and he's fast enough. He's good enough. X, Y, Z, and it's true. But it would be nice to have a number at least.
What do you think his true height and weight is?
I don't know. I mean, probably 6'4", 6'4.25". Weight
6'4".
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
wow.
6'4", 6'4.25". Weight's always a tough one. Let me see here, because I was trying to see. We only got to see him for a second at the combine. Drake London weighed in at 214 pounds, and I thought he was slender. Marv is probably right around that area. I don't know officially. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever find out. We'll probably find out when he gets to his rookie camp. I don't think he weighed in at that pro day the other day. But yeah, I would say somewhere along there, somewhere 6'4", 6'4.25", probably 208 to 214.
Yeah, I mean, Rome Odunze is very similar to Odell Beckham, and that was the best wide receiver 3 drafted in any given draft class in the last 10 years. This is cool. This is cool. So let's actually jump into the show. Let's start the show. I'm gonna bring you in, and we're gonna get this thing really going. As you know, that's how it works. I just need to find the intro music to get us ready. I mean, you should start to hear it. I mean, it takes a little while, but it's there. It's starting. Don't worry. You'll start to hear it.
I hear it. It's coming.
Here we go. That's right. An old friend of the underworld. Happy to have him back with Matty Kiwoom. Welcome to the Mind of Mansion program, the OG of OG content creators at PlayerProfiler.com. He's now with Roster Watch and Player Profiler. He's back with the Hurdle Show on the Player Profiler Network. Makes me very happy to welcome Cody Carpentier. Talk to me.
I'm ready, man. It's draft season. We're back again. I think this is the third straight year in March we're having this conversation. We're just soaking in all these pro days. They're about to be done. We're about a month out, I think 29, 30 days, 28 days, whatever it is, until Detroit Motor City. I'm ready.
In the chat, the audience wants to know, what do you bench?
What do I bench? Well, so I think that this came up. I think Tyler's in the chat here, but I posted the 225 bench thing. I did it the other day. I did it 25 times, and I haven't really tested the reps. The best I think I ever got for the reps, I think, was 31. I think that was 3 years ago. So I did 25 reps the other day at 225.
That's impressive. You're almost up in the Jerick McKinnon zone.
Yeah, I think he was 31, wasn't he?
He had 31 bench reps, that little guy. That's amazing. But yeah, dude, you're an absolute horse. It's unbelievable. We're gonna see each other in Detroit. We have a big lodge. Alex and Cody and Maddie and like the Theo, like our best and brightest will be at the draft. We'll be broadcasting live. Every single pick will be covered. We're going to be having pre-shows and post-shows. We're gonna go harder than we've ever gone covering the draft. It is our specialty. It is our big retreat weekend together where we just block out 5 days, get together in one place. It's where it's big bonding week. Can't wait. So free agency happened while I was gone. I was in Japan, so there's some things that I'm not aware of. Like, hey, did Marvin Harrison participate in the Ohio State Pro Day? Like, these are things that I'm not aware of yet. Did the Ohio State Pro Day happen or not? These are not things that you can find easily in Japan unless I tried to unplug as much as I could. So now that we see Malik Nabers just completed his 40 running between a 4.38 and a 4.43 officially, once it's adjusted, that's what we're going to be looking at, and a 95th plus percentile burst score for Nabers. We're going to see if he participates in the agility drills coming up. We'll report that in real time as we see it. I hope he does it. I really hope. Like Jamar Chase, and then most recently Romeo Aduze, participating in all the drills, all the workouts. That really does endear them to scouts and coaches in particular. So I hope he does it. That would just be a great sign. It would be a great sign that we've got the level of dog at wide receiver. Best top 3 wide receiver prospects we've seen in the NFL draft since 2014. It's been a decade since we had the Sammy Watkins, Mike Evans, Odell Beckham, not to mention the Devontae Adams in the second round, all the other guys. But heading into that draft, it was an exceptional class, and they delivered. This is an exceptional class. I believe they will deliver as well. Last year, the number 1 pick was Bryce Young, and that turned out to be a very bad pick by the Carolina Panthers. If you're the GM of the Panthers, if you are the owner or anyone involved in the organization, every day you must think about what would life be like if you had picked C.J. Stroud. But Bryce Young was a prolific and efficient passer at Alabama against high-level competition. And the Carolina Panthers did acquire Deontay Johnson. While I was away, I did notice this. This was what I believe to be the most underreported signing or trade that happened in the last 2 weeks. So what do you think this means? This Deontay Johnson, Bryce Young connection, does it move the needle for you?
In the context of saving Bryce Young, keeping him, I'm just happy that the angle they've taken is to improve everything surrounding him, right? They spent $100 million on guards. They went out and traded for Deontay Johnson. They've brought in Dave Canales, who's an offensive mind who helped resurrect Geno Smith, gave Baker Mayfield almost, I think he had 4,000-yard season last year. Like, these opportunities at the quarterback position are, there's a few guys that do stuff like this, and Canales is one. I'm hoping it translates now that he's in the head coaching role. Of course, that role is majorly different than being an offensive coordinator or a quarterback coach, but I think that'll help Bryce. So they're surrounding him with the things he needs to succeed. So I think in that context it does. But as far as Deontay Johnson goes, as far as getting back to staying on the field, finishing a game, being something in fantasy football that you can depend on a weekly basis, a guy that, 3 years ago had 170 targets. I'm not sure he's getting back to 170 targets in this offense. He feels like my question is, why can't he be, I was talking about Canales a second ago being in Tampa. Why can't Deontay just be, the Godwin of this offense and take in those targets, which is fine, but who's the Mike Evans? Do they have a Mike Evans? Do we think that Mingo has the stones to do that? Do they draft Troy Franklin in the second round, Lad McConkey? They have 2 picks now in the top between 33 and I think 39th overall. And Thielen is still there. And tight end's a position of need. I'm not sure what it looks like right now. I'm not ready to jump out front and be like, yep, Deontay Johnson alpha, 170 targets, bounce back. I'm not ready for that. Do I think he's the best receiver in this room? Yes, hands down, 100% right now.
But what about the impact on Bryce Young? The impact on Bryce Young. So in Dynasty, would you rather have Bryce Young or Jared Goff?
I think I have Bryce Young ahead of him by 10 spots overall. Yeah, I think I have Bryce Young at QB 21. I take Bryce Young. The age just gives you a different feel. Goff, I get it. He's still got 5-6 years in him, and it seems like in Detroit, the way it's pacing right now, they're not going to give up on Goff. And if they continue to add weapons, it's going to be nice. But I still trust Bryce Young. We've had this conversation. We had this conversation last year a bunch about the order of these quarterbacks in last year's class. And for fantasy football, Bryce was at the bottom of that 4 for me last year for a reason. And the reason was we knew what this situation looked like. We knew that the weaponry was dismantled, and we knew his upside was going to take a little bit to get there. So I got him at QB 21 in Dynasty, and I don't feel great about it. I've had a couple conversations over the last couple of weeks, and I think it's funny enough you bring that up, as Goff was one of those guys that was like, well, would you rather have Goff for the next 4 or bet on Bryce? Who's going to start more games the rest of their career type of a situation?
Goff is the man in Detroit with a great offense, an up-tempo offense. So he's proven, and he's still only 29 years old. I can't believe Jared Goff's still only 29 years old. And you don't win dynasty leagues by incorporating what you think a guy's going to do 8 years from now. Right? What is Jared Goff going to be when he's 37? I don't know. But I know he's going to be a starting quarterback in the league at age 30, 31, 32. And so it's really an apples-to-apples comparison between him and Bryce Young. I thought that was a good. I'd rather have Goff. But I'm still bullish on Bryce Young. I still think Bryce Young could take a step forward. I just don't see the massive ceiling. If you're a pocket passer, you either need to be in an up-tempo offense with great weapons, or you need to be mobile, and he's not mobile enough to move the needle with his legs. So therefore, he's in this category of Tua Tagovailoa and Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins. The guy that I'd like to see him move ahead of this year is the fellow Alabama alum Tua Tagovailoa. I think that makes a lot of sense. Tua's only ahead of him because of the weapons. If Tua had the same receivers, then Bryce Young would be ahead. But now with the addition of Deontay Johnson, that could be just enough. You're not a Jonathan Mingo truther, are you? Do you think that Mingo is draftable?
In 2024 in Dynasty?
In 2024, like in best ball in 2024, you drafting any Mingo?
I'm not clicking that button. I just, like I said, I don't know. And that's why I mentioned it a second ago. I kind of jammed it in there. It was like, does Mingo have the stones to be like, the role is there. Like, they gave you opportunities last year, 10 targets. The opportunity is there. I'm not sure he's got the mental fortitude. And I'm not sure he's got the stones to be the Mike Evans in this offense. The chair's there. Take it.
He doesn't have the talent. He doesn't have the perseverance. He doesn't have the separation ability. He doesn't have the athleticism. He doesn't have anything I don't even know if he has the hands of Mike Evans. I don't know if you can pick a single Mingo is on par with Mike Evans. So I think that's way too high of a bar for him. The question is, can he be Devontae Parker eventually in the league? That's really, I think, what we're hoping for. Give us 1 year. At some point, can he give us a year? That's all you're really hoping for at this point. You have Bryce Young behind Will Levis, I'm assuming?
100%. 100%. You know that.
100%. Now, Calvin Ridley joins Tennessee. Not great for Calvin Ridley, but pretty good for Will Levis.
Mm-hmm. I love me some Will Levis, and everybody knows that on this channel. But similarly to Carolina, where they're doing the right things to surround Bryce with guards, another receiver weapon, they're getting rid of defenders, which makes no sense other than team building. But what Tennessee's doing, bringing in pieces from the defense like L'Jarius Sneed, trading for him from the Super Bowl champions, bringing in other pieces on defense, bringing in Skoronski last year round 1, bringing in a Pollard, another dynamic piece in the backfield, bringing in Calvin Ridley. Like, they're doing the thing where they saw enough out of Levis last year. I definitely saw enough. Everybody knows year one's the toughest year to succeed. So that's why the Stroud thing was so impressive, because you don't get a full offseason to, you get to understand the playbook, but you don't get a whole offseason to go through every part of the offseason, go through the camps, work out with your teammates at the time, because you don't know who your teammates are until, May. Whereas Levis showed enough flash last year. Now they're saying, all right, cool. Give him everything we got to get. We got to get him. Probably going to take Olufashanu, probably going to take or Joe Alt in the top 10. They're going to protect him, which has been a problem in Tennessee. They brought in Calvin. They brought in Tony Pollard, 2 dynamic pieces that kind of play well off of each other. This is all right, Levis, this is your offseason. Earn it. Take it right now. That's what I think I'm most excited to see, is this will be the year we're going to learn whether Levis is QB 18 or QB, is he going to get into that conversation? Is he going to get up into that 7-8 conversation, 6-7-8 conversation in Dynasty at QB?
If they draft Joe Alt and Joe Alt is as advertised, then Will Levis is going to be one of the best situations for any quarterback in the league. He could struggle. He could not necessarily play at the highest level. He could technically make worse decisions than Bryce Young, but because of the offensive line, because of the weapons, the production will be greater, right? So he could look at Carson Wentz with the Eagles, like a top-tier offensive line and wide receiver group can wallpaper over a lot of deficiencies. As long as you have a big arm and you have that extra second of time to go through your read progressions, that makes all the difference. Where a guy like Bryce Young, he's having to get the ball out earlier. He doesn't have the same talent, doesn't have the same sort of downfield playmaking talent as Will Levis has. And then all of a sudden you look up and then Will Levis is crushing him in fantasy points per game. That's likely this year. But I still think Bryce Young is a safer bet longer term, just because Will Levis was the second-round pick. Will Levis was hugely inconsistent last year, and DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley are both well past the age apex. But for this year, yes, if I'm drafting an underdog, if I'm doing a best ball draft, I'm going Will Levis all day. In the backfield, Pollard versus Spears, how do you see the opportunity share shaking out?
I think they were both at a point, I think a couple weeks ago when this deal first went down. Spears was crawling himself. I think he was up to I don't know what the number was exactly on underdog, running back 14 to 16, I want to say it was. He's dropped down to 30 now on underdog. Pollard's up to running back 21. I think those prices are proper currently. I don't want to see the juice go any higher on a Pollard or a Spears. I think they're going to play very well off of each other. But I think it hurts both of them from a fantasy football perspective. But it's exactly what the idea that Spears was going to be this world beater of Derrick Henry's gone. He's going for 1,000 yards on the ground. He's going to have 45 receptions. That was never going to happen with Tyjae Spears. We talked about it last year, the worries with the knee, and he's very good in the Tony Pollard role. And now he gets Tony Pollard on the team.
Yeah.
And Tony Pollard's good in the Tony Pollard role, and this is the Tony Pollard role, working off of each other. 2 dynamic players that they'll be able to play with both of these guys in the backfield side by side with Levis. And it's going to be elite from that perspective. It should be anyway from an offensive schematic stance. But as far as fantasy football goes, I think they're going off in a proper range. Best ball is going to be obviously, the phrase of, best ball dependent or best ball type of a player. These are going to be the guys that I think will be more so best ball dependent right now for me in my draft style than it will be when August comes around and I'm drafting my seasonal leagues. I'm like, I'm not going to just go out there and I'm not going to draft Tyjae Spears to be my running back too, because there's going to be weeks where they're working off of each other. One's going to score 4 points. One's going to score 17. Maybe they both score 6, things like that. I just don't want to have to deal with that in that aspect. But I think as far as Dynasty goes, they're both in a good spot if you have them as holds. Because really, I think the answer to the test is in Dynasty, at the end of the finish line, which is week 13, 14, 15, 16, who's likely to be healthy by then? Probably Pollard. probably Pollard. That's probably where I'm leaning.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Pollard's older, but I think Pollard's a better value right now in Dynasty given his ADP.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Spears is a better value in best ball now that Pollard is signed and now he's the presumptive starter. But, I mean, most running backs missed games last year. So Pollard's probably going to miss games like most running backs miss games. And in those games, Spears has a chance to really go off. And that they've surrounded Levis with so many ideally suited weapons to help him is just amazing, right? And if they don't go with an offensive lineman, they could go. I mean, do you think it's possible that the one of the great tight ends in NFL draft history falls to the Titans? Is that even possible? He can't fall that far. There's no way Brock Bowers falls to them, right?
I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to click that button. I think they would click the button on Nabers before they would click it on Brock Bowers there. I think they're at 8. I want to say the numbers.
I mean, can you
7.
imagine, though? Can you imagine Tennessee with that web if they got Bowers and Pollard and Spears and Ridley and Hopkins? I mean, what? It would be crazy.
You're kind of covering every quadrant.
It's unbelievable. You can't. If you're Levis, it's truly like a Valhalla moment, and it would make me even more confident. But that backfield is the best ball backfield. I mean, I've never seen a better best ball backfield than just. It doesn't matter. Pollard, Spears just happens to be the better value. That's fine. But I mean, when there is touch uncertainty in an ambiguous backfield like that, guys are going to have spike weeks no matter what. That is where you're finding best ball value. So for me, I like Hero RB this year. I want Breece Hall. I want Bijan Robinson. Happy to draft him in the first round. And then I'm also happy if my next running back is Tyjae Spears. You just start with a running back early and then just load up on these value backs in the double-digit rounds, and we'll talk more about the value backs as we go. What about Chuba Hubbard? Is that a good value back?
Chuba Hubbard's interesting. Everything they told us at the NFL Combine was they were going to lean on Chuba. And I asked them straight up, point blank, is Chuba Hubbard showing you enough last year to be your RB1 and to be an RB1? And the response was basically, Canales said, we're going to run, and we're going to run, and we're going to run some more. And it makes sense, given what we saw from Rachaad White. Obviously, last year being high on Rachaad White paid off, but they spent money on the guards. They have the offense built around Bryce Young, and they're not going to just come in here and say, Bryce Young, throw the ball 600 times. No, they want to establish the run first and foremost. That makes life easier for him. So Chuba should be heavily leaned on. Now, running back 38 is a sick value going off right now in Underdog. I 100% like that. However, they can't cut Miles Sanders until the end of the year. So Miles Sanders is still there. And then the question comes in, Chuba's a free agent after next year. Do they draft a Cody Schrader, a Dylan Johnson, a Michael Wiley in the 5th round? I think the odds of them doing that is near 90%, drafting a running back in round 5 or 6. They have 2 picks in the 5th back-to-back. It makes too much sense from a team building standpoint to take a running back at that point,
right?
Being you're a year out from, you're 100% cutting Miles Sanders this time next year, and you're probably not going to re-sign Chuba Hubbard at age 20, whatever it is, 6 or 7. Raheem Blackshear, whatever, special teamer. No, they're going to try and maybe they draft even the 4th round, 3rd round, who knows? But I think they're going to bring somebody else in. So I like where it's at right now, running back 38. I'll draft him. I have drafted him. But I'm a little hesitant just because I'm not sure this offense does rebound to the fact that I don't think they're going to win 8 games. They might win 6, but it's not a winning team. They're still deprived of talent. They drafted another running back. I'm kind of middling on Chuba, if I'm being honest, and I like Chuba.
That's crazy to me. This is the first shocking response that I've got from you. I'm like, wait, what? I thought you were going to be all in on Chuba. This is crazy.
Yeah, I loved the prospect of him, but last year coming out of camp, I was up there at the Carolina Panthers fall, what do they call it now? Fall camp, whatever. And Chuba, it looked like it was going to be a 50-50 split with Sanders, and it ended up being, we saw more Chuba than we expected as the season went on, but he looks good. But I just don't trust. It's more so me not trusting the team being good enough and the team not drafting a running back, and they have to use Miles. They're not just going to have Miles Sanders sit on the bench and do nothing. Like, he's going to be a nuisance.
Fundamentally, the presence of Miles Sanders is why I like Chuba Hubbard, because I think he's much better. Yeah. And I think that he has it's rare that you have such a the size with the speed, and now the receiving skills that he's shown that he didn't show as much at Oklahoma State. So it's a great opportunity to find a guy on a team that the offense could be better than expected.
Yep.
And there's still this fly in the ointment bust free agent signing from last year that is muddying the water in terms of projected opportunity share. And that's where you can find value in a guy like Chuba. It's hard to find. It's hard to mine value. These best ball drafts, these dynasty drafts that we're in, they're usually so efficient as fantasy gamers are getting better and better every year, that now we have to look at the bad teams, find these ambiguous backfields, and just circle the guy you think is better. And so that's what I'm doing with Chuba Hubbard. George Pickens now has the passing game to himself in Pittsburgh. Are you ready for takeoff here?
I am fully in my chair, seatbelt on, shoulder straps in, pants off, socks off, flip-flops on, ready to go.
Yeah.
Full blown. Like, how is this not the George Pickens? Like, 2 years ago, you had the conversation with Rich Rebar about this class, this London, Burks, Pickens, Wilson, Williams, Olave, this massive class.
Big class.
Of high-end depth. Who's going to bust, right? We kind of know who the busts are on paper. Pickens falls into the late second round. We talked about that. Should have never happened. Should have been a first-round guy. He's one of the 4 guys in that group that has north of 1,700 yards in the first 2 years. Now he's in an offense that they've shown you. They just gave it to us on a platter and said, hey, guess what? He's the only one here that really matters as far as wide receiver. We spent money on new quarterbacks.
Wait, what? I thought what about Calvin Austin?
He's a wide receiver 4.
What about Calvin? But listen,
I love him.
You like Calvin Austin.
I do, but this isn't the role for him. That was another camp I went to last August, and Allen Robinson was there, and they were giving Allen Robinson wide receiver 3 opportunities with Calvin Austin healthy, and Calvin Austin looks sick. But this is the problem, Matt, and you know this. You built a damn website that's based on athleticism, size, height, weight, the whole 9 yards. What is Calvin Austin? He's Greg Dortch, and Greg Dortch is awesome. Calvin Austin's awesome.
Calvin Austin has deep speed, though.
They're not Tank Dell. They're not hyper skaters when it comes to route running. Calvin's dirty, but he's a career 4. This is what he is. It's one of those like the Shi Smith thing 2 years ago. We love Shi Smith as our wide receiver 4, as our punt returner. Like, it's awesome. It's a role, but for us in fantasy land, it's like, fuck, man, what am I supposed to do? You can't get caught with your pants down on a guy like Calvin Austin. And that's where we're at, where it looks like, yeah, this is Calvin Austin's time, but it's George Pickens is really what it is. And we saw it a couple years ago in Tennessee with A.J. Brown as the wide receiver 1 going for 1,000 yards, his year number 2 with Arthur Smith, with Corey Davis in there, right? There's no Corey Davis in Pittsburgh right now, but maybe there will be in a few weeks when Ricky Pearsall or Javon Baker come to Pittsburgh.
They're going to draft someone, Lad McConkey.
I'm going to be excited. I'm going to love that guy. You know what? I'm going to love that, whoever that receiver is, whether it's Baker, Pearsall, Roman, Lad McConkey, doesn't matter. I'll love them. But guess what I'm going to love more is George Pickens. You've seen the growth and maturation. Yes, he's maniacal. You have to keep him, on a leash. Sure, he's a dog. That's what he is. And he's grown. 80 targets, 102. How come this year he doesn't jump to 130, 140, 800 yards, 1,100 yards? How come he doesn't jump to 1,400? Like, this is the year. This is the opportunity. Year 3, the hyper jump for George Pickens, the dog, the maniacal one. He's got a quarterback that needs to bounce back. They've had Arthur Smith. People forget Arthur Smith was the one that kind of resurrected Ryan Tannehill's career after he busted in Miami, right? This is a good situation for Russ and for Justin Fields. And by that math, it's going to be a great situation for George Pickens. This is going to be a run-centric offense with play-action bombs to George Pickens.
Yeah, one of the easiest ways to find value, we talk about how efficient most fantasy drafts are. One of the easiest ways to mine value is to identify where the coach worship or the coach hate is influencing where people are being drafted. And in this case, you can say, hey, I don't factor the coach narratives into my analysis as much as most fantasy gamers, fantasy analysts. So therefore, a guy like George Pickens is a buying opportunity because, it's Arthur Smith. He has this Arthur Smith stain, and that to me is a buying sign.
100%.
And the Steelers have pick 51 in the second round, right? Overall pick 51. If you had to guess a position in the draft, because you're a big mock drafter, if you had to guess a position that a particular team would take, I mean, the Steelers love drafting receivers in the second round right around that spot, and now they have this glaring hole at wide receiver 2. There is no easier, other than like the first few picks in the draft being quarterback, and we know that what teams are probably going to stay pat there. Other than those particular slots, the Steelers drafting a wide receiver at 51 is one of the easiest predictions to make.
We've seen it, like you just mentioned, year after year after year with this team hitting on round 2 receivers, hitting on round 3 receivers at 51 overall. I mean, the problem, I think, with one of my favorite landing spots in all the draft is Ricky Pearsall from Florida. He's going to play in the slot. He can immediately make that Deontay Johnson role better. Runs a 4.41, 6'1", 182, the whole 9 yards.
He's moving up on our dynasty rankings, that's for sure.
Jacksonville likes him too, and the problem is Jacksonville picks at like 48. So, there's a world where they do maybe pass and they go corner. They do need corner. Maybe it depends on what they do in round 1 to go tackle, whatever. But anywhere between 51 and 84, there are 2 picks in the second, third round. They will 100,000%, which is a weird bet to make. 100,000% take a receiver. The history of the Pittsburgh Steelers tells you they're taking a receiver right there. They did it a couple years ago with George Pickens, Calvin Austin in the 4th, Chase Claypool in the 2nd, Deontay Johnson in the 3rd, James Washington in the 2nd,
yes,
Juju Smith in the 2nd.
James
you want me
Washington.
To keep going? I can keep going. I don't have to. Like this is what they're going to do. And this is they hit on them every single year. And some of those names we just listed off, Javon Baker, Ricky Pearsall, McConkey, Roman Wilson, signed me up 6 times.
I see McConkey in the chat. Is he going to be available?
I don't think so.
No way.
I don't think he will be.
No way. You can see him drafted in the first round at this point. There's some.
Well, if you're Maddie maniacally, we did a mock on Monday, and Maddie put him 20th overall to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think that's going to happen.
It's probably not going to happen, but I mean, stranger things have happened. I mean, I've seen a lot worse receiver picks than Lad McConkey in the first round. I can tell you that right now.
Yes.
I mean, we've lived through Corey Coleman in the first round, right? Think of some of the first rounders we've lived through. It's been bad. So yeah, Henry Ruggs, right? Didn't even have a breakout age because he didn't produce enough in college. I mean, there's so many. Okay, so looking at the Atlanta Falcons, this is a popular team to talk about right now because now they have Kirk Cousins, and this is going to unlock everybody, and it's just going to be a fantasy point cornucopia. Has Drake London jumped the shark at this point?
Is Drake London a top 12 dynasty wide receiver? Yes. He has not jumped the shark. Drake London is doing – this is the same conversation I brought up a minute ago, and this is one of my favorite – probably my favorite guests. I think I've told you this before, but you and Rich is my favorite guest that you've ever had on and have on every single year. Rich is awesome. Met him multiple times. But that pod you guys did 2 years ago talking about that draft class with, like I said, London, Williams, Olave, Wilson, Pickens, the whole 10 yards. saying one of these guys is going to bust, Burks or London. Burks is busted. Burks is done. We'll just hang that up right now. Burks is done. Hang it in the lure. He's done.
Of course.
They told us at the combine, I asked a stupid question to Callahan, the coach for the Tennessee Titans, and everyone's like, why are you asking this question? The question was, how do you compare Jamar Chase's game to Treylon Burks? And people was like, that's a stupid question. I was like, no, it's not, because this guy Coach Callahan coached Jamar Chase in Cincinnati for multiple seasons. And the expectation for Treylon Burks, if you remember coming out of college, was this guy is a plus-size athlete, 6'2", 215. He's going to run a 4.40. He didn't. He's going to be dynamic like he was in college. He hasn't been. He hasn't been developed. And basically the answer I got was, well, you can't compare these guys. And this is what Callahan said. You can't compare these guys, and Burks has still got development to go. Bust. Done. Hang it up right now. So he's busted. Jameson Williams has been busted. Drake London's been
2 years in. Wait, hold on. If it's 2 years in and you still need development as a first-round pick, it is over. That means that is the most definitive it's over statement you're going to hear.
And so tying it back to Drake London was that these were two guys that were kind of tied together because they're similar size and what they brought to the table. And Olave and Wilson were drafted up top, but they were similar players as well. London's hitting. London he's made it through the gauntlet of hell playing in Atlanta the last 2 years, and he gets the best free agent signing of the offseason in Kirk Cousins. And firsthand, I lived in Minnesota forever, firsthand watching Kirk Cousins. Yeah, he's a good quarterback. He's not tier 1, he's tier 2. He's very good at the game called fantasy football and getting the ball out to his weapons. And I was looking forward to seeing, similar to Pittsburgh, who that wide receiver 2 was going to be. They go out and bring in Darnell Mooney, Rondale Moore. You already know the sick running back they got. They got the tight end. Everything's surrounded around there. Drake London is still going to get peppered. I love Mooney. I love Moore. He's still going to get 140, 150, 160 targets with Kirk Cousins at quarterback. Like, this is the smash spot of smash spots for Drake London. Like we said, he just made it through the gauntlet of hell the last 2 years with Arthur Smith and with Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke playing quarterback. The pain that we've suffered through the last 2 years, if you've had Drake London, who's not even 23 years old yet, he's going to be 23 when fall camp opens. This is it. This is the definition of holding. You drafted this guy in the top 10 in your dynasty drafts, and it's been painful, but you held on. You didn't sell low. You held on through the fight, and now you got Kirk Cousins. You got a new offensive coordinator. You got new weapons, and this is it. Drake London is going to burst through the ceiling, and he's going to bring you 12, 13, 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns, and it's coming. It's coming fast.
If you look back at 2022 and extrapolate those efficiency metrics into additional opportunity, I agree with you. But he did take a step back last year. His target rate dropped to 23%, number 32 in the NFL among wide receivers. So this is a player with 10 and 10 fantasy points per game in back-to-back seasons, and he's yet to put up a top 40 wide receiver season in fantasy points per game. Mm-hmm. This is historically not the type of receiver that you draft in the second round on Underdog. You don't think the second round for Drake London's jumped the shark?
Where is he exactly? Is he ready? Is he at the turn going into
Yes, he's at the turn. Pick 23.
I like that though.
Jesus Christ, you like that?
I like that, man. I think that's fine.
You can't make mistakes. You can't be overweight into best ball portfolio on a receiver like Drake London. You can't. In the second round, you can't do it.
Look at the guys around him, though. Like, maybe this is just a thing of these guys just being there. They're all overrated, but Devontae Adams, we love Devontae Adams, over 30 years old, playing with who at quarterback? DJ Moore, Keenan Allen's in town, new quarterback, a lot of weapons. Brandon Ayuk, is he going to even be in San Francisco this year? Like, these receivers in this area are what they are. And you could argue, and I could argue right now, that Drake London's in the best situation of all of them. I don't think that's a hard conversation to have.
It's an efficiency metrics extrapolation trap, and this would be my most bullish player 5 years ago. where I'm like, efficiency plus new opportunity equals fantasy points. Lock it in. I'm older, arguably wiser, maybe not. I'm certainly more cautious, and I've just seen too many things. And this would really go against this. You talk about Devontae Adams. That's the perfect historical trend. Devontae Adams was putting up similar fantasy points per game and then exploded in year 3.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, he was doing it with much lower and inferior efficiency metrics to what Drake London has posted thus far in his career. But we've seen it. We've seen the big year 3 leap for wide receivers. It's possible. It's just it's a lot to ask to go from 10.5 fantasy points a game to go to 17.5 fantasy points a game. It's not unprecedented, but it's very rare. We'll see what happens. I think it's going to be very close between Pickens and Drake London. And I prefer the value you're getting on Pickens. And Pickens is, I mean, when do you think Justin Fields is going to take over at quarterback?
Next year, 25.
Do you think it's going to be Russell Wilson all year?
Yeah.
Right? And Russell Wilson has sustained wide receiver ones. Russell Wilson helped Doug Baldwin become a big-time fantasy producer. So, I mean, this is everything Russell Wilson could have asked for. He supplied Cortland Sutton with 10 touchdowns last year. Right? So, I'll just say it. I'm just going to say it. George Pickens outscores Drake London this year. I want Pickens. It should be at least a conversation. Come on. Now, what about the conversation between Kyle Pitts and Pat Freiermuth?
I think that's a closer conversation. I think this Pickens-London conversation is very close, but I think the Pitts and Freiermuth one is closer. And we saw Freiermuth kind of have a little bit of a down year last year, but I think there's a lot of injury involved in that.
Yes. He was playing hurt all year.
The weaponry,
his ADP is in the tank.
Yeah.
Like, he's deep into the double-digit rounds on Underdog now. I mean, you could easily just draft Pitts and Freiermuth. Those could be your 2 tight ends.
Okay, for
me, Freiermuth is a sort of firewall tight end, where like he's the last tight end that I could comfortably draft as my second tight end and not feel like it's overly risky.
So a couple weeks ago, I haven't drafted on Underdog in 2 weeks. Pitts was not tight end 6. He's now tight end 6. That is in my notes is the ceiling. That's like I was going to draft him until he got to tight end 6. Looks like I missed my last week to draft him there.
It's over. Window's closed.
I'm done on that. Freiermuth at tight end 16 is wrong. You know that.
Incredible.
Just from a pure target standpoint in that Pittsburgh offense. And yes, maybe in Seattle and Denver, there hasn't been a tight end that has been dominated by targets from Russell Wilson. Sure. But
oh, man, the tight end narrative, the quarterback X or coach X loves the tight end narrative. That's the other very exploitable, piece of
BS.
Misinformation that is widely distributed across fantasy football media.
Yeah, I'm cool. I'll take Freiermuth here. I did not realize that the Pitts number got up to 6. When he was at tight end 8, I was loving some Kyle Pitts. I still think he's going to be good. The offense in Minnesota, like I just keep comparing this Cousins thing and this Atlanta situation. And I don't know what the offense is going to look like. I think Zach Robinson's there as the OC who came from the Rams, which runs a similar offense to what the Vikings run with O'Connell. So it should have similar outputs outside of the fact that they don't have quite the weaponry at the receiver room. But if Pitts is just a better version of what Kyle Rudolph was, there was a lot of touchdowns to go around. And touchdowns are incredibly not predictable. But as far as getting into the red zone, that's something Kirk has always been good at, and hitting those tight ends when he gets down to the red zone. Now he does have Drake London, who's 6'5". But there should be more opportunities for Pitts. So I like him, but 6, like I said, is the ceiling. So in this question, Freiermuth or Pitts, value, it's not even a question.
Cousins is loving life.
Yes.
He is loving life. He's got Darnell Mooney stretching the field with sub 4.4 wheels on one side. He's got an elite sort of big alpha possession receiver on the other side in Drake London. He's got a hyper-athletic tight end. He's got a hyper-athletic running back out of the backfield who commanded a lot more targets than anyone expected last year. Still underperformed his ADP for other reasons, but he didn't disappoint as a receiver, that's for sure. So that's my big winner. My big winner from the Kirk Cousins trade to Atlanta is Bijan Robinson. That's the answer. Yes. When people are like, oh, who benefits more, Pitts or London? Neither. It's Bijan Robinson. Oh, yeah, all those dump-offs and just the overall offensive efficiency. It could account for 5+ additional touchdowns having Kirk Cousins under center for Bijan Robinson. The chat wants one more running back, one more sleeper running back along the lines of a Tyjae Spears, a value back. And the running back that we need to talk about, who we love, who seems to be, snake bitten, is Roschon Johnson. Roschon Johnson, snake bitten last year, had the opportunity ready. Khalil Herbert gets injured. What happens? Oh, Roschon Johnson sustains a severe concussion. Now it's like, oh, he can earn the starting job this year. Oh, they're signing DeAndre Swift. Loser game show sound. But DeAndre Swift is going to be on his 3rd team in 3 years. I'm not so sure that DeAndre Swift is going to be as motivated. There's very few players, what I would say, oh, yeah, I question the work ethic, or this guy just got a destination contract and he's not going to put the work in anymore. He's going to be Devontae Adams. Like there are, it's a thing. Like it is not a total fallacy, this idea of the destination contract ruining players.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Devontae Adams happened. I mean, Devontae Parker happened. Right? Did I say Devontae Adams before?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. I meant Devontae Parker. If I said Devontae, major, huge, incredible, overwhelming apologies sent to Devontae Adams and his family. I meant Devontae Parker. The Devontae Parker destination contract happened. And if there was ever a running back destination contract, it was DeAndre Swift to the Bears. So we're going to see which DeAndre Swift shows up, right? Because the Lions didn't get what they wanted from DeAndre Swift. The Philadelphia Eagles did not get what they were hoping for from DeAndre Swift. Now it seems that the Bears are paying and praying that they get the Georgia version of DeAndre Swift that has not yet materialized in the NFL. This, begs for, late round Roschon Johnson this year in all formats.
1,000%. And last year we were so out ahead on Roschon, on Kendre Miller, and Miller obviously had his injury, and Roschon probably we're a little ahead of ourselves, probably a little out of pocket. But this situation this year, where everything we did here last year about his growth, and he did deal with injuries as well. He had a hand injury at the Senior Bowl, and then he was injured throughout the season. I'm going to draft the hell out of Roschon Johnson. This is setting up to be perfect for I don't want to call him a league winner in March, but perfect situation for a league winner type if the Bears do take that step and they are a 10-11 win team. And when we're talking in August, Roschon Johnson's getting all of the publicity in practice and getting all the work as the running back too, and beating out Khalil Herbert. That makes Khalil Herbert expendable as they probably draft a running back as well. And Roschon becomes the de facto number 2 by the end of camp. Maybe they move off Herbert. Maybe Herbert just takes that running back 3 spot. Herbert's going to be a free agent next year. And Swift hasn't been healthy. He hasn't finished a season. So the opportunity is going to be there. They're not going to, we know Swift isn't a Derrick Henry. He's not going to take 360 touches. He's not going to take 35 a game. It's going to be built in for him. Roschon's 220 pounds, 225 pounds. There's going to be plenty of opportunities. And even if Herbert is healthy and even if Herbert is in the game as the running back too, Roschon's in the perfect spot if this offense takes any type of step forward and becomes a 10-11 win team, a wild card type of a team. So I love Roschon Johnson. I think he's at running back 51, 50, running back 50, going off the board at 167 overall after Tyler Algier, who we didn't even bring up with the Atlanta Falcons before because everyone knows that Bijan Robinson is going to get the full workload there. After Kendre Miller, who obviously has been banged up last year, and there's still 6 running backs in New Orleans. I love where Roschon's going off the board, running back 50.
Thank you. And that's not take lock. Bruce
No.
Flash in the chat. I love how when
It's conversation.
we move players in Dynasty, we get smeared for having no conviction. And then when we show conviction on players that are good, like the reason why we have conviction is because these are good players. It's not, we don't have conviction of bad players. I'm like, hey, this guy's in a great situation. We'll see what happens. He's worth a dart throw. This is a situation-based play. Just know what you're getting into. This isn't a great dynasty play. Roschon Johnson's a great dynasty play. He's an even better dynasty play than he is a best ball play because you're looking for these ambiguous backfields. It's not ambiguous. They just signed DeAndre Swift. Well, I believe that at some point in the NFL season, there will be whispers coming from Chicago talking about a whisper campaign criticizing DeAndre Swift for his work ethic, for his focus, for one of these things. All these things that the coaches care more about than we do because we understand that, if DeAndre Swift is super efficient with his touches, he should be getting the ball.
Yep.
Right? He should be getting the ball. And just because he's not, demonstrating the type of attitude that Roschon Johnson does, that doesn't mean that you should be pulling touches from him. Like if it's me, I'm feeding DeAndre Swift. I don't care about what his attitude is or, when he's showing up to meetings. But coaches care about that stuff. And we know that Roschon is a coach's dream. In pass protection, in the receiving game. He exceeded expectations last year as just one of these hard runners and ball security in all these areas. You could see Roschon Johnson endearing himself to the coaches, becoming the RB2 in Chicago and being set up to be the starter for a period of time when DeAndre Swift is suspended or injured or whatever the hell happens with DeAndre Swift. We know that he's not a dog. His dog rating is one of the lowest among running backs in the NFL. And there aren't many instances where how hard a guy works off the field comes into play because we are predominantly an analytics-focused enterprise here at Player Profiler. This is an exception. This is the extreme exception. When a guy is out on the extremes in one direction or the other, that's when some of this non-football behavioral issues or virtues starts to become a factor. And it just so happens that Roschon's on one end of the spectrum and Swift's on the other end of the spectrum, which makes Roschon an interesting dart throw. I mean, he's down 3 full rounds already on Underdog post DeAndre Swift signing. Right, he's down to pick 165. So Kendre Miller is officially going around earlier than Roschon Johnson, and Roschon Johnson is just going to keep sinking. But Kendre Miller is also a great value. This is why I love Hero RB this year. There are so many Spears and Millers and Johnsons available in the double-digit rounds. I feel like I just need to get that one stud workhorse early, round 1 if I need to, and then wait it out and be the last team in best ball and dynasty in all formats to draft a second running back. I think that is the best tactical approach to the running back position in fantasy football this year. What do you think?
Yes. And I just want to add on to that, with all that being said, and I agree with you 100% on Roschon Johnson, I do think DeAndre Swift is still a fine play where he's getting drafted. He's going off at running back 26. He should probably be running back 17 where the board lays right now. He should probably be a little bit higher than where he's at. So if you're in these drafts and he does fall to pick 100, I think that's a fine place to take him. The problem, again, like we talked about, though, on paper, there's not really a ton behind him. We obviously love Roschon. This is why I think it's funny that you get the comments in here about take lock. Oh, these dynasty guys, they love this guy, so they're going to love him now. Every situation is situational. It changes every single year. They call it what? Bayesian process, right? And the thing is, more people left this backfield than entered it. They paid this guy, and this guy just happens to have 3 career games with 20 or more carries. 2 of them came last year, one against the Vikings, who were the worst defense in football, the other against the Giants. Both games came with a fully healthy Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. Swift hasn't dominated anything. So to think that Roschon isn't a good value at running back 51 is a complete, whatever the opposite of take lock is that you want to call yourself. You're in take lock the opposite direction, because the role has to be there. We've learned it the last couple of years just with the injuries of the running back position, and now they're continuing to add games to the season. All of these things go into the same conversation, but I think both of these guys are fair plays. I think Roschon's a sick value, but also Swift, if he falls any further, like, I'm cool drafting him. He gives you the good boom games. He is going to give you a couple games, 25 to 30 points. It's going to happen. He's a good receiver. All those things come to the same conversation, but the answer is Roschon Johnson. It always was, it always is, and always will be Roschon Johnson.
It's an ambiguous backfield, especially with the presence of Khalil Herbert. You move the Khalil Herbert piece off the board, and suddenly everything clears up. And Swift will jump a round or two. Roschon Johnson will jump up multiple rounds.
It's a slingshot.
Suddenly there's clarity. And that could be via trade. That could be via injury. There's a lot of ways that Khalil Herbert could not start the season on the Bears' active roster. It's also possible that DeAndre Swift is Miles Sanders. Right? They were drafted at a very similar draft spot, very similar contracts, very similar career production. These are very similar players. In fact, I'm shocked that DeAndre Swift and Miles Sanders aren't best comparable to each other on PlayerProfiler.com, which would make Roschon Johnson Chuba Hubbard. And that, to me, is exactly what you're looking for. You're looking for Chuba Hubbard on a better team. That's Roschon Johnson. That's the case for Roschon Johnson. And thanks to the Fantasy Plumber in the chat for exactly what I just said. 2024 Swift equals 2023 Sanders. Thank you, Fantasy Plumber. I appreciate the people in the chat that are elbowing themselves in between haters with some actual, real, logical analysis.
Yeah.
And it's not just a hate stream. That's what I love. And then you have people that actually appreciate us, and we appreciate you all in the chat. And after this, we're gonna talk a little bit of rookie talk. Right? Don't you think it's time? Don't you think we need some rookie talk?
Yeah, I think we do. I did want to read one thing off to you because I know you haven't been in the Twitter streets the last couple of weeks. You've been on a little vacation. This very good tweet by our good friend Ian Hardtits is the 6 highest paid running backs in free agency since 2016. Le'Veon Bell, 4 years, 52. Chris Ivory, 5 years, 32.
What?
Jerick McKinnon, 4 years, 30. Lamar Miller, 4 years, 26. Miles Sanders, 4 years, 25. DeAndre Swift and Tony Pollard, 3 years, 24. Those are the 6 and 7. Those are the 6 largest contracts over the course of the last 8 years, and there's one common factor between them all.
Bust. Oh, draft Roschon Johnson, draft Tyjae Spears. That's what it says. That's basically what it says. All right, we'll come back. Cody Carpentier, rookie talk. 10 burning questions after this. This episode is brought to you by Player Profiler, the Dynasty Deluxe package. The rankings are the best in the industry. It includes strategy mode where you can say, hey, change the rankings to be win now. Oh, change the rankings to be productive struggle. There's also a draft planner to help to strategize where you should take players because the draft planner also includes ADP. There's a trade finder where we look up on My Fantasy League and we see trades that are done, including a particular player. Then there's a trade analyzer where you can plug in draft picks, players, and we assign a lifetime value to draft picks out 5 years. The best thing about our trade analyzer, it can't be gamed with volume. And there's mock draft data to see right now what's the market for player X versus player Y, including in the fall when very few mock drafts are happening. And our Dynasty guide, the Dynasty Dominator, would cost you $10 on Amazon, but you get it for free with Dynasty Deluxe, and you get our rookie guide for free, a $25 value. So you get all of that for $45. I mean, it's a great deal. It's a great deal. Cody, 5, no, 6, no, 7, no, 8, no, 9, no, 10 burning questions. 10. All right. Before we talk rookies, such a tease.
Shit.
Just give us one more free agent move that you found interesting. Could be an offensive lineman, anything.
We just talked about it, man. Running backs, they don't matter. But, damn it, it feels like Josh Jacobs is maybe the best free agent signing outside of Kirk Cousins. I think if the Packers can have a B- draft, fill the D-line hole, add a DB, bring in a tackle or two, a B-, the Packers will be in the NFC Championship.
Ooh.
And you know how much I hate the Green Bay Packers. And I don't think Jacobs is going to be the McCaffrey to the offense, but I don't think he is not going to be.
He's a solid player. And that's all they need. That's all they need. They have all these young 23-year-olds at quarterback, at wide receiver, at tight end. Just bring in a veteran running back, bring in a veteran skill position player. I like signing veteran skill position players from free agency and via trade, and I like drafting fundamental point of attack players.
Mm-hmm.
I like to draft my edge rushers, like to draft my offensive linemen, draft my quarterback at the end, and then fill in the backfield with just value plays. So that's what they're doing. They're doing it right in Green Bay, man. They're doing it right, and these guys are all gonna get better. They're all gonna take a step forward with one glaring exception. Who's the one receiver you don't think is going to take a step forward this year?
I like Wicks. I like Reed. I like Watson.
Yep.
I like Torrey.
Yep.
I like Malik Heath. I like Bo Melton. I think that's all of them, right?
Bo Melton, that's my sleeper pick in the deep rounds. Bo Melton, because there's one guy you didn't mention. Is
there one more? I thought they could only hold
anyone
six
in the
on
chat
roster.
have it's a trivia.
I thought there was only 6 on the roster though. I didn't think they were allowed to have 7.
Right, it's a little trivia, a little brain teaser. Which receiver on the Green Bay Packers did Cody not mention? The answer: Romeo Doubs. Romeo.
How could I ever forget? How could I ever forget
Romeo? Right. Bottom line, Watson and Reed are 1 and 2 there. And then the question is, will it be Melton or will it be Wicks that ends up surpassing Romeo Doubs? Now, Caleb Williams or Anthony Richardson in Dynasty?
Razor close. Just went through an updated, finalized all my rookie rankings literally 2 days ago. And that includes Dynasty, and have them back to back. I still give the edge to Richardson. I saw enough, in last year we talked about at the beginning, QB1 in fantasy. I thought you had to start the conversation with Richardson. Obviously we've seen what Stroud has done, but Richardson, what he does with his legs, he he was on pace to lead the league in fantasy points per game if he was healthy all season. Now that's an astronomical expectation, but it was out there. It was in front of him. The road was paved or getting paved, and he was hurt. So I'm keeping him up there in the conversation. Definitely in the top 10. I have him right now at 7. And Caleb, I plugged him in at 8. Not getting too fancy with that. I trust the process. I also think Maddie had a good point saying Chicago's kind of setting the gold standard right now for kind of just on-ramping a quarterback. And normally these number 1 overall, number 2 overall teams are not set up to succeed. And the Bears just happen to fall into the golden loom, the greatest golden loom of all time, possibly, trading with the Panthers last year.
Trade down.
To now have these prolific.
The trade down golden loom. The trade down golden loom. A quarterback hasn't been this set up for success since Jared Goff.
Yeah. And yeah. This is sick, right? So I think he deserves to be up in this conversation, despite all the people on Twitter having their thoughts. But Richardson, Williams, back to back. But I just got to give the rushing. I got to give it to the rushing guy. Neither of them. I don't think either of them are really above average pocket passers. They both create on their own. They both do their own thing. They both need to grow as overall passers if they want to be, Pat Mahomes is an anomaly, but if they want to get up into that conversation, they need to advance and get to the Josh Allen conversation. Stroud and Burrow are the 2 pocket passer kings right now, and I don't think either of these guys have that in their repertoire at the current stage. So I like them both a lot, but I'd lean toward Richardson. Just that rushing is just too sick.
But Caleb Williams is just as fast.
I don't know about that.
I will say the trash man. They just didn't ask him to run. They didn't ask C.J. Stroud to run. They didn't ask Justin Fields to run much at Ohio State either.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if Caleb's as fast as. I don't know about that, but I will say that Trash Man, who is in charge of our Dynasty rankings over at Roster Watch, he has Richardson at QB4.
Oh,
which I think is aggressive.
And that's we can assume that he doesn't have Caleb Williams at QB3 in that case. So he's higher on Richardson too.
Yeah.
But we're ahead of market. Be ahead of market on Caleb Williams. That's the bottom line. Buy the hype. If there's a guy to buy the hype on, is Caleb Williams. Like, oh, we know he's the 101. We're going to. Well, there's value there, right? There's value on underdog drafts in Dynasty. There is a possibility of getting this guy. You're in Superflex, trading for the 101. I know you're going to have to overpay. If there was a year to do it, this would be the year. If there was ever a time to overpay for the 101 in a Dynasty Superflex rookie draft, it would be this year. I'm not that guy. I'm not going to do it. But this would be the year that it's defensible. These people that were doing it in previous years, almost always indefensible, right? Indefensible. This year, kind of defensible. Especially now that you could say, oh, well, if you trade back, there's a good chance you can get J.J. McCarthy, right? If you trade back with me, it's fine. It's it's not that big of a difference, right? What do you think the Patriots draft J.J. McCarthy?
They can't not. That's the problem. They can't not.
Right.
I think the best case scenario for this whole thing to go down is for Daniels to go too, for the Patriots, for the Vikings. The best case scenario for the Broncos, whoever team you think is going to trade up, it's the best case scenario is Daniels goes 2 to Washington. It makes too much sense with how they've built a team with Mariota back there. And you got a Heisman that has flamed out, but is continuing his career, played with Jalen Hurts last year, gets to bring in a new Heisman that is equally as fast, if not faster, with the same upside, more talented arm. Perfect situation for Washington to go into. Caleb, of course, goes number 1. How do you – and when you're sitting there with JJ on the clock, with Drake May on the clock, they can't not draft JJ. I love projection. I love 6'4", 220, big arm, rushing. I love Drake May. But
sounds like Will Levis.
But yes. See, this is the thing. But if you're the New England Patriots, how they've built this team so far, what Gerard Mayo's done, has not spent money at the receiver position. He's focusing on building the defense back up. He's got to bring in some linemen. He brought in Antonio Gibson, who's not a wide receiver, even though he can play it. He's a 225-pound running back. That's better than Ramondre Stevenson. Next topic.
Thank
but McCarthy.
Yeah, I had a question about that later. Never mind. That's it. Yes,
but
Gibson is better than Stevenson.
McCarthy, this isn't just a historical recurrence. This isn't just, Brady was Michigan. Brady was picked 199. McCarthy's going to be picked 3. He will be critiqued heavily. But also was Rodgers, also was Love when they were coming in after Favre, as was Mac Jones. McCarthy has it all intellectually. We saw it in the 15-minute special that they did on ESPN during the season. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. I think it was ESPN. He's hyper accurate. He's the winningest quarterback in the history of college football by a landslide. I think it's by like 60 points as far as like the 0.94 or 0.944 to 0.97 or something like that. Astronomically better than Trevor Lawrence. 1 career loss, 27-1. One of the most underreported things at the combine that came out was him weighing 216 pounds. The assumption was he's going to be 204, 203, 216 pounds. I'm not saying he deserves to be the 101,
and
but
he's an athlete.
People are questioning why the surge. It's like, well, this guy a month ago, he wasn't in this conversation. Why is he top 5 now if he wasn't a month or 2 ago? The big draw on him was the fact that he didn't throw the ball enough during the season. He won. He did all the things right that we saw on tape. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. Well, Matt, do you know what happened in the last month and a half? Maybe this thing called the combine. Maybe this thing called interviews. Maybe this thing like what? This is the point of the process.
Cody,
these teams talk to these guys.
I heard that he face planted at the pro day.
No, you didn't.
I heard he had a bad pro day, Cody.
For me, it's easy to see why the surge has gone up here to the top 5. But this, for me, the situation to New England, it makes too much sense. They aren't in the situation to draft a Drake May and say, well, our quarterback coach is a whisperer and he's going to bring him along like X, Y, and Z came along. Drake May does need a little bit of tweakage. JJ McCarthy can come in, and I don't think that the Harbaugh comments are fugazi. I think that him saying this is the best quarterback of all time, but whatever. Have your thoughts. I think he's pro ready in that aspect. I think he may be one of the most pro ready quarterbacks we've seen. I don't think he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. I think that's complete nonsense.
Well, didn't he say he's the best quarterback in Michigan history?
Yes. And then he's like,
wasn't that correct? That is correct.
Quarterback in the draft. It's all this, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's more so just him blowing. It's the same thing. And I love Jim Nagy.
It's like Tom Brady was an elite college quarterback. He was constantly benched during his entire time.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't agree with it. They could have gone undefeated had they not benched him for Drew Henson at various points in that season, especially in the Illinois game. They would have won that game. They just stuck with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Regardless. Okay. Tom Brady did not have a stellar college career.
Yeah.
You just said JJ McCarthy, the winningest quarterback ever. And he checks all the boxes. He has the size. He has the athleticism. He has the arm strength. He has everything. So, yeah, I mean, I think that he's in play to be the second quarterback off the board. I think he has a higher floor than Jaden Daniels. And I think the Patriots should just push the button at 3 and feel lucky that they got this undervalued asset where he could have easily gone at 2. Just because a guy was viewed as a second-round pick 3 months ago doesn't mean he's not a value at 3 overall now. Things change. New information has been processed, and new appreciation of what he's already done has clearly happened. So what? Make the best pick for your franchise. That's J.J. McCarthy. If you're at 2, you're at 3, you're at 4, be happy to get J.J. McCarthy. Who do you think trades up into that 4 spot?
Minnesota. I did want to add one last thing though onto that McCarthy thing was NFL's gotten this thing wrong forever. This McCarthy thing. The Purdy, Cousins, Dak, Carr. Generally, they don't get this. Generally, they just chill out and they're just second round, 4th round, 7th round. It seems like they've gotten this situation. They've gotten it right this cycle through for some reason. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's just Jim Harbaugh talking, but I do like that. But fourth, I do like the Vikings to move up to 4. It makes too much sense with the ammunition that they've garnered. And in this situation, I think it would be perfect because the May thing, people have heard this before, but Josh McCown was Drake May's high school head coach. Josh McCown is now the offensive coordinator for the Vikings. Josh McCown played with Sam Darnold for the Jets. Everything's just intertwined together for Drake May to go to Minnesota. For a while, I did think it was going to take them having to move up to 2 to do it. But with the J.J. McCarthy helium, Jaden feels like a shoo-in for 2 or 3. Drake May might be the one that falls, and that could be 4. That could be 6th. That could be 8th. It could be anywhere, but I think the Vikings are going to have to move up to get him from 11, and I think that they're going to be the team to do it. I don't think Denver has the ammunition to do it. We asked them at the NFL Combine what they thought. George Payton was like, we don't have the assets to move up. We wish we did, but they don't have the assets to move up. The Raiders, not sure they do it. So it feels like Minnesota is like the one-man band just figuring out. They just really got to figure out what spot they're going to move up to at this point.
I mean, since Penei Sewell went at 7 to the Lions, we haven't seen a better situation for someone drafting at 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
Right, in that zone. Right? Like at 6, it was Jamar Chase, it was Waddle, it was Sewell. I mean, that was, 5 through 10 3 years ago was just an incredible time to be alive. And that's what I'm looking at here. When you got Chargers, Giants, Titans, Falcons, Bears, and Jets at 5 through 10, incredible time to be alive. We're talking about elite franchise left tackles. We're talking about the best tight end prospect of all time. We're talking about truly elite wide receiver prospects. Congrats. You're a Giants fan, you're a Falcons fan, you're a Titans fan. Congrats. And the Cardinals, they could get enamored with Marvin Harrison. Right? They could get enamored with Joe Alt. They could decide, hey, we're not trading down. We're going to stay here. We traded down last year. We're not doing it again. This is it. We're going for it. We like this guy. We're enamored. And then it's the Chargers that trade down. And maybe it's the Chargers that trade down. And then they start what the Bears got last. They start that golden loom of the trade down picks, and you just keep parlaying picks into more picks, keep parlaying picks into more picks. The Howie Roseman system that's worked so well for them. We'll see. We'll see what happens. So is it possible that Nabers, Odunze, and Harrison all go top 10?
Yeah, I think they do. I don't see a reason why they don't. So we talked a little pre-show about these receivers, even when it started about Malik Nabers, and that number did come in, I believe, officially unofficial at 435. By the way, so he will be a 4.40 in the database, it looks like. But Marv is clear-cut going to be most likely the first drafted. We've heard the whispers about him, about Nabers being the first receiver drafted, but in totality, it's going to be Marv. Malik finding that next spot and Rome finding the next spot is what it comes down to. Chicago's an option. Chargers are an option. The Giants are there. The Cardinals are there. All 3 of these dudes are going top 10. And like you said, it dates back to 2014 with Watkins, Odell Beckham, and Mike Evans. And I think that Odell was 12th. So this would be 3 guys in the top 10, which I don't even know the last time that happened. I don't know if it ever has happened. I went back like 30 years, and I don't think it had happened once. So Rome, he probably falls the furthest of them all, but I don't know how he falls past 10. I don't know how the Jets don't add him. Jets. They want receiver. The Mike Williams.
No, the Jets, man, they need Fashanu. They're hoping for Fashanu there. That's what the Jets. That's the wet dream for the Jets is to get Fashanu there.
He ain't gonna be there. There's no way that Chicago doesn't draft him. There's no way. If he falls to 9, he's gone. And with the Jets, their insurance policy was signing 2 40-year-olds, Morgan Moses and Tyron Smith, and then they went out and got Mike Williams. It's all insurance. But the one thing is, Mike Williams is a 1-year contract, as these other guys are. They can bring in Rome and have a pretty sick trio for Rodgers or whoever ends up being quarterback if he gets hurt again.
Yeah.
And then Mike Williams is gone next year. And it's Garrett Wilson and Rome Odunze for the next 8-10 years. And that's disgusting. And Nabers, like you brought up a second ago, in the top 10. My last mock 5.0 dropped on Friday at rosterwatch.com. You brought up the Cardinals. I had them moving down from 4 to 11 with the Vikings and then moving back up to 8 and getting Malik Nabers, which is exactly what they did last year. They dropped from 3 and then came back up and got Paris Campbell. We talk about
so you have in your mocks, you have guys trading down and then trading back up again.
Only Monty Ossenfort.
You're a maniac. I love it.
Monty Ossenfort
You're a mock
is maniacal.
maniac.
Monty Ossenfort from the Patriots to the Cardinals, he is growing or climbing very quickly in the favorite GM rankings. Like this guy's just awesome. Great interview. He does just maniacal shit. On YouTube, they have a Arizona Cardinals war room videos that they run pre-draft, post-draft. It's just the whole thing around Arizona. I just love it. I love what they're doing down there. And Ossenfort showed us last year. He's got the stones to drop and come back up. Why not do it this year? And maybe everyone's like, Cardinals love Marv. How do you know they love Marv? How do you know? You don't know. Come down, bounce back up, get Malik Nabers, pair him with Michael Wilson and Kyler Murray and Trey McBride, and it's pretty sick itself. So I think he has all three of these guys do go top 10.
I was debating Alan and Theo yesterday on the Sonic Truth. Brian Thomas versus Xavier Worthy. Who you got?
Xavier Worthy by a bit. I work for Orange Bloods. I've done shows with Alex the last 6 months for Orange Bloods. And so I've watched Worthy exponentially close. And 2022, he had a hand injury, broken hand. So people are knocking him for drops. The only knock that Worthy has is his slight lower quarter, which is, the quads through the calves, very slight knees, but he's 165, 170 pounds, is what he is. But that's what Tank Dell is. It's what all these guys are. I'm not sure he's quite the route runner. He's not quite the route runner. Tank Dell's different. But Worthy just has, and you saw it with the 4.21. If you go turn on the Wyoming tape, you go turn on the Oklahoma, you go turn on the Alabama, there's multiple times in all those films where Worthy catches a football, and anybody who played Pop Warner football or sixth grade football knows angle drills are like everything on defense. That's like something early on in your brain that gets drilled in. It's like angles. As soon as you see a guy catch the ball and you see he's got open grass, angles. What's my angle to get this guy? These guys are playing college football, and they can't find the angle on Xavier Worthy. A whole defense can't find the angle on Xavier Worthy. He's just different. He moves different. Alex keeps comping him to Tyreek Hill. He's not Tyreek Hill, but he has that freaky speed. He has that different, that difference maker speed where Tyreek's just different. Tyreek has rubber for ligaments. Tyreek can stop, start, change direction at full speed. Worthy is just a guy that gets to full speed, and it's like watching Usain Bolt run the 100. Like it's like it goes so fast that you can't even. This is what I'm saying is it's more so the angles. Like you can't angle this guy. If he's in the open field, it's toast. And he, for me, is the bridge between those top three and everybody else. He's the bridge. It's Xavier Worthy, and then it's everybody else as far as after the top three. And Brian Thomas.
So only Worthy, would you say, is worthy of a first-round pick other than the big three?
Yeah. If I'm building an NFL board, which I'm working on right now, it's about to go up on Roster Watch end of the week. My big board is. But Worthy'd be the only guy outside of those top three I would draft in round 1.
Wow. But this is the best class, the best wide receiver class I've ever seen of non-dominators. Even Romeo Duzé wasn't a big-time dominator because he was sharing the field with Polk and other weapons. Mm-hmm. And you had this happen where a lot of the elite receivers were sharing a field with other elite prospects in their same draft class, or Marvin Harrison with younger elite players. They were all sharing the field with other elite players, right? Brian Thomas and Malik Nabers. I mean, and on down the board. The Texas receivers. And it's just, there was a lot of great receivers at Georgia that Ladd McConkey was competing against. So you have a lot of these wide receivers with sub 50th percentile dominator ratings. I've never seen this many quality receivers with sub 50th percentile dominator ratings. Have you?
No, and it alludes to the depth. And I made a tweet about this, I think yesterday or the day before, about the crazy depth of this receiver class. And it's going to allow a lot of these teams to backfill, and it's going to cause guys like KJ Osborne and guys in that tier, and I love KJ, but guys in that tier in the NFL to lose jobs when the fall does come around. They're going to be making roster cuts, and it's going to be like, well, damn, Anthony Gould, who's my running back, who's my wide receiver 31 out of Oregon State, Anthony Gould, sick at the Shrine Bowl, sick. Gonna make a roster, gonna have opportunities to be a wide receiver 3, and he's like literally outside the top 25 because of the sick depth. Guys like that are going to cause guys like KJ Osborne, maybe not this year, but next year to like get cut and not make rosters and things of that nature. Like Devontae Parker gets a contract for the Eagles. Cool. Not going to be there in August. Not going to be there in September, I should say. Not going to happen. Like this is what the depth of this class brings to the table. Ryan Flournoy, Southeast Missouri State, Senior Bowl guy. Johnny Wilson, Florida State. Jalen Coker, Holy Cross. The depth is disgusting. And
it's
like
bad
you said,
news for if you're you had second round draft capital last year. You're on the Carolina Panthers. You couldn't separate. Bad news. This class is bad news for receivers like that.
Yeah.
If you're Sky Moore, right? It's just like there's just so many receivers like this where it's like, hey guys, you had your opportunity last year. You should have cashed in. When you get an opportunity, it's like Eminem. You have one chance, one opportunity to prove everything and show and get everything you ever wanted. Will you capture it or will you let it slip in this moment? And Mingo, let it slip. Sky Moore, let it slip. And it's not going to come back. These receivers are not going to let it come back.
Mm-hmm. One that I like is like Donovan Peoples-Jones. Traded to Detroit last year. The opportunity's there. Josh Reynolds is gone. Oh, cool. Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's gonna be the starter. No, he's not. Just wait. No, like that's the quintessential Terrace Marshalls, the Mingos, the Donovan Peoples-Jones, the Wan'Dale Robinsons. You can keep on going. Burks is going to get himself into that conversation before the end of the conversation.
God, it's Elijah Moore.
That one feels.
You're not going that deep, are you? Because I love Elijah Moore. That's my problem. Like there, to me, there's a quality cutoff, and I think that quality cutoff is Elijah Moore.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right on the nails right there. Because that's like a. I love Elijah Moore.
I'm not willing to write him off.
But you have to ask that question. Yeah.
But Romeo it's a question, Dobbs. Right? It's a question, right? It's a question. Yeah, Romeo Dobbs. That's the one. That's the one I was really thinking. The first receiver that came to mind was Dobbs, and then Mingo. I was like, Dobbs, Mingo, dead. That was what I was thinking. Because it's like the Packers aren't done drafting receivers. Just because they have a bunch of young ones doesn't mean they're not going to draft more. They don't have an alpha yet that's established. They're going to keep drafting receivers. That's the right move. They've been doing the right thing, right? The Packers they haven't been going by the book like the Bears have. I mean, the Bears have been rebuilding by the book where like I have almost no moves to criticize. Mm-hmm. It's been that good. But that's the thing with the NFC. NFC North, Lions, Bears, Packers, and now the Vikings are like, okay, we're gonna do a rebuild on the fly here, trading Kirk Cousins. They've got to execute this flawlessly given what's going on in their division.
They have to thread the right there. They have to, and I don't think they will. I don't think they can. The defense
is little needle.
Yeah, and the offense. The thing is, like we talked about a minute ago, if they can get Drake May, it's going to work for the offense. The offense is going to be nails. They might score 30 points a game. They might have a great young offense, but that defense is going to give up 35. It's like this is the problem with rebuilding how they are. This is the problem with paying contracts like they did with Kirk. You don't have the opportunity to do a proper build like you saw with the Lions. We talked about at the last couple drafts. They just nailed. The Packers, it's such a well-oiled machine. They can just continually do it. And the Bears have now been forced to do it, and they had the golden loom. The Vikings are just you're seeing the wrong way to do it. I think it's going to backfire on them.
Oh God, I know. It's just, by the way, the chat is hyperactive at this point, throwing names of receivers out there. They're trying to make us sad, saying Calvin Austin. Great call. A guy maybe that's even a better example than Dobbs or Mingo would be Van Jefferson.
Yep.
Chase Claypool. I mean, it's a long list.
Free agent Chase Claypool.
Quentin Johnston. Quentin Johnston, I mean, he had his moment. Were you going to capture it or are you going to let it slip, Quentin Johnston? He didn't capture it, but now they're setting him up to give him another bite at the apple. Maybe. Because that pick they have at 5, they're basically telegraphing that's going to be either Harrison or Nabers. No?
Shouldn't be. I told you I dropped that mock last Friday, and I had them bounce back to 7. I had the Tennessee Titans go up to 5 and assure themselves to get ult, because that's all we heard was in the NFL Combine was the Tennessee Titans are worried they're not going to get either of the tackles. They love them both. So I have them bump it up to 5. Chargers come back to 7 and drafting Jared Verse, the edge rusher. And we're like, what the hell are you doing? They're taking a receiver. What are you doing? And it's like, this is Jim Harbaugh, dude. This receiver class is deep. This is Jim Harbaugh building a roster inside out.
Yeah, you're right.
You can draft 3 receivers later. I don't care.
You're right. I did the basic thing. I was basic. I was a very basic thinker there. You got me. Shame on me. Yes. The Harbaugh's gonna draft a guy at the point of attack, of course. I think Harbaugh's gonna want alt.
He should. That would be the proper move.
I mean, that would make sense. That's who I would draft. If I were the Chargers, that's who I would draft. That's what I would do. But, I mean, we've done enough decision points with Anand about this topic that I don't need to talk about how important it is to take stud left tackles at pick 5 through 9. It's like about 5 shows a year on the decision point about just that. Troy Franklin, has the hate gone too far?
No, I think it's fine. I think it went back to where it should have been, where it started. Everything came in disappointing for Troy Franklin before the NFL Combine. So I'll back up now probably to January when I finished my first iteration of receiver rankings. I had Troy Franklin receiver, I think 12. And this is before I don't read anything. I just do my own thing. I come out with the answers and then I'll think about it, talk about it, listen to other people.
Fuck reading, dude.
That's my yeah, that too. But that's my process, right? I want to have my opinion, then I want to read, learn, and talk. We'll figure it out. Maddie's like, dude, I love Troy Franklin. You got to go check him out. Theo's like, dude, you got to go watch Troy Franklin. I was like, I watched him. I think there's some issues there. They go, you got to watch him again. So I go back, and the problem I have with this sometimes is when somebody tells you like, oh, I fucking love this guy, and you don't, you got to go back and watch him. Sometimes you get in your head, you're like, looking for things that aren't actually there that you want to be there. And I came away finding like a little Jameson Williams in him. And I liked it. I was like, this is sick. He's dynamic. He can push.
Wait, he can push. Maddie was trying to sell you on a Jameson Williams comp?
No. I said, this is what I'm going in there looking. I'm looking for something that isn't there. Something I didn't see the first iteration through. I'm looking for it. And I found a Jameson Williams. I found a quicker, longer, taller Devonta Smith. Not the route runner, Devonta Smith is. Go look in the database at PlayerProfiler. 6'3", 187 pounds. There's one player. Marquess Wilson, Chicago Bears, 7th round pick, 2017. Yeah. That's it. 6'3", 187. But he didn't come in at 6'3", 187. That's a problem. He came in at like 6'1", 7/8, 176 with Burger King hands. Runs a 4.41, not a 4.31. The gauntlet was the worst gauntlet we've ever seen. The gauntlet you're supposed to run in a straight line. The gauntlet for Trey Franklin was this. It was bad. The on-field work was bad. I like Troy Franklin, but I think it properly come back down. I moved him up because, like I told you, I found things that weren't actually there. I looked past it because my boys were like, hey, you should go check him out again. Give him a second chance.
If there was ever a year to just disregard college dominator rating, this is the year. The guys with the great dominator ratings, like Troy Franklin, are trash, and the guys that don't post the great dominator ratings, like Adonai Mitchell, are better.
Sick nasty, yeah. So, yeah, Troy Franklin, I think it came back down to earth. I think it's where it belonged. I had him 12, literally got up to 4 or 5 with him. And then I dropped him right back down to 11. And I don't think he's terrible. I think there's plenty of opportunities in offenses for him to succeed, but I just see too much Jerome Simpson. I think I just see too much mediocrity in his game to believe he could be a top 6, top 7 guy in this class.
Jerome Simpson, that's a great poll. I love it. And we have chat questions. Are you guys doing a live draft show? Absolutely. Every pick of the NFL draft will be covered live on the Player Profiler YouTube, Facebook page, everything. We are going to be broadcasting from Detroit, Michigan. We have an obscenely luxurious draft house. It's a full-blown lodge on a lake that, outside Detroit, that where we're going to be. The main draft desk, talked about it yesterday with Theo. The main draft desk is going to be hosted by Cody Carpentier, Matty Kiwoom, and Alex Dunlap. They're going to be manning the main desk. I'm going to be on the couch with more like of the shenanigans, and we're going to have a news desk. We're going to do the whole thing. We're going to have boots on the ground, multiple correspondents, Anand and Dury. We're getting credentials. We're going to be there. It's good. It's going to be the best coverage available, really. And if you're watching the main ESPN coverage, that's fine. NFL Network, that's fine. Put us on the second screen.
That's not fine.
It's fine, but us as the second screen is going to be very valuable because we're going to have a lot more fantasy spin than we've ever had with our live drafts. So just set your calendars for that. We're going to be there. It's good to keep reminding people about that event because it's big. I'm certainly spending enough money to make it happen, for Christ's sake. Better get some people watching. We will. Right now, we have over 1,100 live viewers.
There's some dogs in the chat. I guarantee that. There's some dogs in there.
I can't even keep up. I've never had this happen where I can't keep up with the chat. It's like I have to scroll around for I just saw a great comment and I can't find it. This is a good problem to have, man. Okay. Give us one more sleeper. I mean, you talked about one earlier that you had as a deep guy that you think is going to be, stealing someone's lunch in the NFL. Give us one more.
So I'll give you two. I'll do this, but quickly though. I'll give you two quick ones. One being probably my favorite receiver in the class. That's Javon Baker from Central Florida University. He's my wide receiver 5, 6'1", 208, fits the archetypes, 4'5", 440, 3.21 yards per route run, 30% production rating in college this last year. Went to Alabama as a 4-star. Played with everybody at Alabama the last couple of years, transferred out 2 years ago, became a Big 12 wide receiver, Big 12 all-conference wide receiver. He does all the things right. This guy's going to go in the late second, early third round. Reminds me a lot of Rashee Rice, a lot of Stephon Diggs. So technically he's not a sleeper, but technically he's my sleeper because I have him ranked considerably higher than everybody else. But my real sleeper – Probably Malik Washington from Virginia. Probably. Okay. He led the country in receptions last year. He's 5'8". He's 200 pounds. He's a maniacal tackle breaker. He really just going to play slot a lot. He brings a lunch pail to work with him. Broke 35 tackles, like I said before. 50% of the receiving yards came after the catch this last year. I think they're overlooking him for his height and his weight. He's a little guy, but he's hyper explosive. Arguably the most dominant receiver outside of Nabers and Adunze last year.
Jeez, I know, but that's the thing, man. Domination didn't matter as much. So, okay, you got Anthony Gold. You got Javon Baker. Is it Javon Baker or Javon Baker?
Javon.
Okay, it's Javon Baker. Apologies. I got him confused with Jaquan Jackson with the way I pronounce the J-A sound. So Javon Baker, Jaquan Jackson, and then we've got another J-A, Jalen McMillan. Oh, my God. Jalen Polk. Oh, my God.
Jamari Thrash.
I can't. This is an unprecedented number of people with a J-A to start their names. Now, okay, so you got Gold, you got Baker. I'm just going last names. Fuck this.
Jackson Jonkey.
Just so you know, Just so you know, on Player Profiler, we have Malik Washington well ahead of these guys. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
But then, if you had to choose between Baker and Gould, who'd you pick?
Oh, that's not even close. Baker's my wide receiver 5. Gould, I have at 31.
Oh, we have Gould higher than you do.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier, was the fact that, like, Gould is sick. He's slight. He's a dirty punt returner. He runs 4.3, but he's wide receiver 31 for me. And I sit here daily and I want to adjust. And I gave myself the marker of Monday, and I just cut it off. I said, I'm not going to move anything. I've watched all the tape I can watch. I've done all the research on these guys I can. I'm done moving them. And it's otherwise I sit here and I just pull my teeth out because I'm like, I want to move this guy over this guy and this guy over this guy. It's just so deep. Like Jamari Thrash from Louisville is going to succeed. From Louisville, wide receiver 19. Jacob Cowing doesn't deserve to be wide receiver 20. Xavier Leggett, wide receiver 21. People look at you with, like, you got, 4 eyes and an asshole for a nose if you tell them that. It doesn't make any sense. Devontae's like these.
Oh, we're much higher on Leggett than you are.
That's fine. I like Leggett. I went there. The pro day was nice. Might remind me a little bit of Quentin Johnston, but it's fine.
That's the thing. Quentin Johnston's more of a guy that's outside the top 10 in a given draft class, not top 3. Anyway, I love it, dude. I love, but we do need to give people at least 1 or 2 rookie running backs.
Yeah.
We do need some. I mean, running backs big in fantasy. The chat is asking for running back takes. We need at least a couple. So, okay, how about this? Trey Benson or Blake Corum, who you got?
Trey Benson.
Okay.
Benson's my running back 2. He showed you at the combine. He's a plus athlete, 4.39 at 216 pounds. It's good enough for me. All the intangibles are there. He, for me, outside of Jonathan Brooks, who is my RB1, but would have been a clear-cut RB1 if we're taking out Trayvon Henderson. During the season, I was waiting for Trey Benson to take the opportunity. I thought the running back 1 position coming through October, November was like the silver platter was in Tallahassee, given to Trey Benson. Take it. He wouldn't do it. He didn't want it. His feet are a little slow for me. He's a little clumsy on the interior. The running back class overall kind of sucks, but I have him running back 2, and I don't feel good about it. I only feel good about literally 3 of these dudes in the top 10. But I would take Benson.
Is Corum the third one that you feel good about?
No. Corum I have at running back 7.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't feel good about him. Not happy with. He's not Ray Rice. He's not the 5'7", 205. He's very not big. Runs hard at Michigan. If you go check out Noah Hill's write-ups, Noah Hill's formerly of Breakout Finder, Player Profiler, dog when it comes to running back breakdowns. He's talked about the Blake Corum metrics changing from pre-ACL to post-ACL. I think he's gotten back, but he's just not the same Blake Corum that he was. I think he's going to be fine. He's going to get opportunities. The draft capital may even come in with him at the top.
That's the thing. We've
talked about this being a lot of different people have talked to a lot of different scouts, and they've said, well, this guy's RB1, this guy's RB1, this guy's RB1. There's 8 different RB1s for these teams dependent. And Corum's in that conversation. He could be the first off the board. I'm personally out on that idea. But yeah, as far as Benson Corum, I take Benson.
Jonathan Brooks is the answer in terms of RB1, but
yeah,
I mean,
but
you are biased. You're talking about you and Alex with Orange Bloods, right? Of course, you guys like the Texas guys, but in that particular case, I'm all about Jonathan Brooks. I think there's Jonathan Brooks and then a step down to all these other guys. You don't have Jalen Wright in that either.
No, I came down on Braylon Allen though. I had Braylon Allen running back 1 because I see a lot of Zeke between the tackles. I see some Todd Gurley in the open field, which of course is like high-end shit, but he didn't run. He's supposed to be 245, came to the combine, looked slight, weighed 235, didn't run at the combine, didn't run at the pro day. And
he didn't run at his pro day?
No, and he cut the weight too. Like he supposedly was 245 during the season, and he cut down to 235 for the combine. Didn't run there or at the pro day, so we don't really have a number on there. But the projection, people said, well, he's going to run 4.44, which would have been amazing, right? If he was going to run 4.44, why wouldn't you run 4.44 at that weight and establish yourself as the alpha? Some people were thinking he was going to run a 4.61. Well, I wouldn't run if I was going to run a 4.61, would you? No, you wouldn't. So I moved him down to running back 4. Wright, I have right behind him at running back 5. Jalen Wright has this. He might have the one singular superpower of the running back class, having a lightning bolt attached to each hamstring. Not quite the Devon A-Chain special, but he has a lightning bolt attached to each hamstring where in any snap, in any given play, he can just, boom, gone. Take it. You know, he's loose. The Paul Allen call of Adrian Peterson, right? He just hits the hole, he's gone. He has that one out of all of these guys, the one superpower. But as far as being an overall running back, I don't see it. He's had 35 targets in 35 games. I don't think he's a good receiver. Thor Nystrom thinks he is. I don't think he translates well to the NFL. I think he's going to be a change of pace.
A Banacana type?
A Banacana plus. Yeah, but somewhere in that ballpark.
The Banacana plus.
I think he's fine, but that's a good call there. The one guy in this conversation we haven't talked about that I just finally pressed the button. I just finally bumped him up. I had him 6. I bumped him up to 3. I'm done with it. It's Will Shipley from Clemson. 4.40, 5'11", 206, white boy out of Clemson, high-end recruit. I just said, screw it. This is the one guy. I talked to Maddie about this on end. I'm like, everything against me is pushing me not to do this. Why am I not doing this? And Maddie asked the question. He goes, could you see Shipley being the best running back in this class in a couple of years? I said, yes. Bingo. Shot him up.
What about Dylan Laub? Lubaubi.
Sick, nasty.
Sick, right? See, this was the same conversation you were having about Shipley. Maddie and I were having about Lubi.
Sick, nasty when it comes to the receiving game. He is built how you want them to be built. 5'10", 210. Runs as fast as you need. 4.50 is just fine. 4.54, whatever. Jim Nagy had this one comment back in December about Lob. That was, a lot of teams think Lob is the best receiver at the event. He plays running back. They said he was the best receiver, ball catcher at the Senior Bowl before the Senior Bowl even happened. Teams were talking about that. A kid from New Hampshire. NFL teams were telling Jim Nagy, this kid is the best receiver at your event. And that event had Ladd McConkey, Roman Wilson, Javon Baker, Brendan Rice, among receivers, not just running backs. Lob was worked out at receiver at the Senior Bowl in a couple opportunities. At the Combine, they actually ran him on receiver routes. They don't do that normally. They had him and... I don't know if it's Marshawn Lloyd or somebody else, but they ran receiver routes at the Combine, which is not normal. Lob's going to succeed. I have him at running back 10.
Feels too low.
You're too.
You just said, you're too low on.
Yeah. No, I am, but I just don't know what the draft capital looks like. I feel good about it. I feel good about him potentially creeping into a top 125 pick, early 4th. I feel good about it. But for fantasy football, I'm just staring at guys like Ray Davis, and maybe you can talk me off this ledge, but like Ray Davis, who's 24, 25 years old, feels like a little bit of a Jerick McKinnon type guy. He's going to get tons of opportunity. He's just going to. Marshawn Lloyd has to be up there. Audric Estime has to be up there. Really, the conversation for me is Bucky Irving, Isaiah Davis, and Dylan Laub at 8, 9, 10.
Well, we booted Estime out of the top 10. Go to the rankings, PlayerProfiler.com. You can see our rookie rankings. We estimate bye-bye.
After the pro day?
Yeah.
You don't care about the 4.5 whatever it is, 4.55 at 225 pounds or whatever.
Well, Maddie and I will meet about it. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
I get it. I
see what happens. We're not on that. We're not on that. That's why If it were receivers and you have a guy that's 20 years old versus a Ray Davis who's 24, then I'm going with Estime all day. But
Well, that's what he is. He's 20.
age just doesn't matter with running backs. It just doesn't. Like when you break out or how old you are at the draft, doesn't matter. Ray Davis is a lightly used race car. He only has so many years on his body in the NFL, as do all these running backs. So maybe Ray Davis plays till he's 28 and Estime plays till he's 26. Big deal.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not that would normally be a big, like, the fact that Braylon Allen has just turned 20 years old at another position would matter more. But yeah, it just doesn't matter, man. The age at draft is not predictive of running back success. That's what we found with the Breakout Finder, and that's what I'm sticking with. Sleeper tight end. We need a sleeper tight end. We know about Bowers. Give us one more guy.
Not a sleeper, but I did move Jaheim Bell. I just announced this. I moved Jaheim Bell up to running tight end 2 ahead of Jatavian Sanders. So there's no Texas love there for Jatavian. I bumped him down after a mediocre pro day.
Finally,
bad combine.
You're being real about a Texas player.
I've had Bell at tight end 3, which I guess is technically a little bit of a sleeper. People kind of have him at like tight end 6, 7. My favorite sleeper is Jared Wiley, tight end, TCU, a guy I think perfectly portrays what the third, fourth, and fifth round is at the tight end position. And you can go back and Mark Andrews, George Kittle, Travis Kelce, you can keep going with guys that went in the 3rd and 4th round and maybe took a little bit of time to come up, but when they did, they hit hard. And Jared Wiley is a guy that has all of the intangibles. He has the size. He actually was at Texas. Then he transferred to TCU because Texas didn't have any opportunities for him because his guy
Jesus
Sanders
Christ,
was there.
there's a Texas connection. Fuck Christ. I was like, hey, we got a good sleeper at tight end. Oh, Texas connection. Fuck.
He never played at Texas, though. That's the thing. He didn't play at Texas.
All right, we'll count it. I don't know. The judges, we got this one. We really need to go. This one has to go to the judges. I don't know. Judges, what do you think? Is that legitimate? No.
Oh God.
Good one though. Hey, anything to work with beyond Bowers, we'll take it. The people will take it. Anything, any sleepers at tight end will take it. Get us out of here, buddy. Give us a bold prediction.
My bold prediction for 2024, and I purposefully do that. You send the show sheet the night before, and the bold prediction, I always wait until I'm in the conversation to give the bold prediction.
Yes.
Because I feel like it gives you the best. Sometimes people sit here, like Alex last week, and he'll give you some BS. And, hey, let's take it out. Let's take it out early. And
Alex is the worst bold prediction in the history of the show.
The last take's better. My bold prediction is in 2024, the Arizona Cardinals at plus 1,100 win the NFC West on the shoulders of Kyler Murray, Paris Johnson at left tackle, Malik Nabers as their wide receiver, and a revamped defensive line with 2 first-round edge and defensive tackles. Arizona Cardinals win the NFC West over the San Francisco 49ers, and Kyler Murray is the runner-up for MVP.
From the Podfather to you, I deeply appreciate you tuning in. And many ask, what can I do? What can I do to help support the hosts, the research they do, the production costs? Go to PlayerProfiler.com, Dynasty Deluxe, World Famous Draft Kit, Rankings, DFS Dominator, and of course, data analysis. Subscribe to any one of those, and you support all of us and take Player Profiler to the moon.